this next talk by Jeff Lait. Thank you so much, Cole. So Jeff is the developer of the roguelike Powder for the Game Boy Advance, and has also written 21 7-day roguelikes, which is an incredibly impressive number. And Jeff is going to talk to us about long-term consequences in games, very much relevant to the previous talk, and that sort of feedback loop. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much as well. It's wonderful to be here at the Roguelike celebration for the 2025 10-year anniversary. As just talked about, I'm going to talk about long-term consequences, not try and teach you them yourself, but actually talk about whether or not they should be taught in video games or not. In particular, we just saw one about history, and it's always said that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. But I always say you're also doomed to watch it repeat anyways, because no one else actually bothered to learn from history. Anyways, back to the long-term consequences question. Let's go back a long time to 2005 or so with the birth of 7-day roguelikes. So as was mentioned, I've written a lot of these. And where they came from, I think, is pretty interesting, because it's kind of hard for me to now imagine what it was like back then. Because what happened was Joseph Hewitt, who was making the game Gearhead, went off one week and decided to do some performance art. He decided just to make a roguelike in 7 days. And this rather shocked all of us in the roguelike community, because to us, roguelikes were these massive games. There were things like Adon, things like NetHack, things like Angband, and that was the minimal viable product for a roguelike. Anything less than that scope was seen as just the beginnings of a pre-alpha that wasn't worth really looking at very much. Myself at the time was busy writing my own massive roguelike, Powder, and I'd also found another problem with this, namely that because we were all building these massive games, first of all, very few could be completed because you had to get a huge amount of area just to start. And second of all, we had a huge stasis of design. There was no room to actually try different things. So we'd have a lot of discussions, we'd come with new ideas, new mechanics that we'd like to see go into roguelike, new ways of handling exploration, new ways of handling hit point recovery, and all those sort of questions. But we know where to actually implement them in. Because if I tried to go to Powder and change how hit point recovery worked, well, I have to change almost the entire game to get that to work. You can see that in stuff like Dungeon Crawl, which has gone through a few iterations of trying to fundamentally change its nature, which requires a huge stripping down of the game. So the trouble is all the existing roguelikes have a lot of design baked into them, but we'd like to actually try new types of design. And this is where realizing that a roguelike could actually be done in 7 days became really revolutionary and opened up a lot of experiments. So over the next 21 years, I've written a couple roguelikes since then. And I was driving these partly because I could actually finish them, because unlike a normal roguelike, which is never done, Powder is still not complete, despite the fact I've not updated in decades, but there's still more work that could go on it. But all these games were actually done. Like the part of the 7-day roguelike challenge is you make a game, you actually tie the bow off, ship, and you can walk away from, which is hard to do as a creator because you'd always think there's something more I can do with it. So to give yourself the permission to actually say it's complete and I can move on to something else gives you the opportunity to try more things and explore more space. So back then, it was still an open question whether or not video games were art or not. And this seems very moot nowadays. We've even had the Supreme Court in the States declare them to be art. So it seems kind of, why am I still bringing this up now? Well, it's because it was very important at the time. And a lot of people arguing for the art side would point to the video part of it and say, well, if it has art in it, it has to be art, right? Because those pictures are art. Well, a roguelike, it has the fonts, and often we don't design those ourselves. There's a lot of prose, but actually very little prose compared to the amount of code. And that's where I always thought the art should live. The art should actually live in the code of the game, not in the trappings of the game. So the game systems should be where the art lives. And we've seen a lot of work on this, and it's actually led to some people suggest that, is it actually possible for a game to be good art and a good game? Because often they seem out of tension with each other. And I do say I've been trying to make good art, and I always make them actually playable games at the same time. So working with art games caused me to get involved with Indiecade. And because of that, I actually got to see in person this non-video game, this physical game called Train by Brenda Romero, which has a very strong artistic message. And it's obviously put through with the trappings of the game as well. Those are a very important part of the art message. But the design of the game, the rules of the game are also very carefully engineered to get the goal of the art behind it. And so it's wonderful to hear her explanation of all of that. And in the open discussion, she said something I'll paraphrase, but she was asking the group, what is the hardest thing to express in video games? And I think it was art or emotion or something that came up at the time. But personally, I jumped immediately on something I've been really struggling with trying to express, and that is long-term consequences. Games seem to be very good at working with short feedback loops where we're able to learn quickly from our mistakes. But anything long-term, players just balk at, and they fail to learn, they fail to even recognize it exists, and they just see it as a bad game. So why is that the case? Well, if we go back to what Ralph Koster wrote about in A Theory of Fun, and actually, if you just saw Xenorogue's slides earlier on simulation versus mastery, that actually seems pretty similar. So he divided what enjoyment we get out of video games into two things. The first thing is flow, and flow is what we get when we're playing a game we have mastery over, where we're doing something well and we're feeling pleasure because we are extremely skilled at doing this action. And that one, if you were trying to make a video game that expresses flow, you're going to have existing skills be used by the player, because they're going to have to come in, and the more they're already skilled, the quicker they'll get to the point of feeling mastery. The other thing you can feel, though, in a video game is fun, and he defines this as the joy we get when we learn a new skill. So the process of learning, of discovery, is where this fun label gets applied. And this is kind of an important point because, while he defined fun as learning, it's definitely not the case that all learning is fun. We can look at cases where it is fun. So, for example, Clair Obscure Expedition 33 came out recently, and I actually managed to play it, which was quite a lot of fun because it was like a very well-polished game. Everything was well articulated, I felt. My next task was well guide-posted. I'd get clear and early feedback on what I was doing right or what I was doing wrong. I'd die quickly and be able to just get back to either where I should have made a different decision or where I just needed to get better at playing the game. I was particularly impressed that this was an RPG I never had to save. Not because it was a roguelike where you save and restart, but because they just seamlessly would checkpoint at the right place for me to always restart. And I hadn't really realized how important the trust of the game developer was that they do that. It also does the right sort of thing for training us about how to actually play the game. It has a whole bunch of nested loops. You start off with the very small inner loops, which are very short-term cycles. You can quickly learn what the correct behavior is, feel your fun of figuring out these mechanics. And then after you get them chunked away, you can start working with the larger loops and figuring out what those mechanics are, and thus scaffold your way up and work your way up to the higher level. And eventually you're working at a very high meta level playing the game. Now, that was a fun way to learn. Obviously, there are some unfun ways. Most of us have experienced institutional learning, which traditionally does not seem to generate the sort of fun we have with video games. People spend thousands of dollars to go into these situations, but then immediately try and find every excuse not to show up. The complaints about it are usually that the skills that you have to learn are completely unmotivated. You don't know if they're necessary or why you're learning them. You're getting contradictory feedback all the time. You're taught one thing in the class, you go to write an exam, and the opposite thing's written down there. And it's an incredibly frustrating world. And so that's a lot of the people trying to teach are like, how can we learn from video games and build systems where you're able to learn in the same sort of way that leverages the ability of the brain to enjoy the learning process. But this, as a contrarian or as a mathematician, I always try and think of the counterexample, and I ask, is that actually a good thing? If we actually found a way to teach everyone everything in a proper Clair Obscura 33 way, would that result in a better world or not? And I'm kind of worried it wouldn't, because that thing we tap into, that pattern we tap in to teach people very effectively and have them enjoy the process, was definitely something evolved to have us learn in the world, because that's where we got it from. But the world was never adapted to work with that. So there's no reason to presuppose everything we need to learn in the world will be learnable by that process. And so if we focus only on the things that are learnable that way, we're going to have no ability ourselves, no training ourselves to actually learn things that don't show up as short-term feedback loops. So what are the sort of long-term feedback loops that can show up and ruin your day? Well, one obvious one is when you run into a wall. So this graph here is of how many seconds it takes to compute 1 million voxels in a simulation of a volcano. And the volcano's doing billions and billions and more voxels as the number of frames by. And you can see that as soon as it gets to a certain size, it remains pretty constant. So there's more voxels to simulate, but the second per voxel stays the same. So the frame times get longer, but your time per voxel is the same. But then on frame 20 on Windows, you see there's a wall that gets hit, where it suddenly takes a huge amount of time to simulate each voxel. And Linux is the same thing, later frame, but same behavior. So what's happening here is we had a resource, memory, and it was free to allocate more memory. The cost of each additional megabyte I did was constant. And so that was why I was seeing a nice constant line. But as soon as I hit a certain number, 64 gigabytes in this case, I hit a wall where I have to go to the hard drive and start swapping things out. And things become an order of magnitude slower. But there's nothing in this graph that would warn you that this wall is coming. It's something external to what you see when you look at this graph. So if you're trying to learn, you just suddenly one day nothing works. But this doesn't happen just in a computer case. This happened to me in a video game. So this is Warlords, a game that I played on Amiga with my friends. And it's a multiplayer game. And so we'd have 5 of us that would get together, and we'd all play different nations that were fighting each other. And we had done a massive battle. This was like weeks of battling, and we're down to just 2 of us. And my armies were growing nice and big, and I was starting to sweep them across to defeat my foe. And all of a sudden, one turn, I went to the next turn, and all my armies disappeared. I was like, what happened? What happened here? My friend pointed out that there was these little numbers down here that we were all ignoring because we didn't know what they meant. But he was wondering what would happen when the gold went to 0. Because during the first part of the game, I had a high income and low upkeep. And so I amassed a massive war chest. But then the last half of the game, I was building these giant armies, and my upkeep spiked, but my income didn't. And so I was losing gold every turn. But I didn't really notice this because nothing went wrong, because I could lose all the gold I wanted until I hit the wall. And as soon as I hit the wall, my armies disappeared. And if we were to design this in a modern way, we would definitely pop up a warning for the user saying, your upkeep has exceeded your income. Please rebalance it before you continue. But is that actually something we should be putting in our video games, or should we be expecting people to be able to understand this sort of consequence? Because this is kind of like a very realistic, real-world problem where people will run into this if they don't watch their bank accounts carefully enough. NetHack does this as well. So playing NetHack, a lot of new users, after figuring out the archaic keyboard commands and figuring out what all these ats and Ds are, can usually smash their way through the dungeon and get pretty far. But then usually they all end up starving to death. And that's because the first time they think about starvation is usually when the hungry shows up on the screen. This is actually probably too late. You want to be thinking about food management from the very beginning of the game, making sure you pick up those rations and eat the dead rats and so on in order to not get to the point where you're hungry. But from the beginner user, they're just seeing hungry, and then they don't know. They try and react at that point to the wall, and it's sort of too late at that point. And so it's a very hard thing for people to learn, judging by the number of questions or complaints about NetHack being impossible to play because you have to die of starvation. Somewhat limited to this is when you have some form of hidden growth. And so rather than a finite resource that gets expended and then all of a sudden you hit a wall because you ran out of that resource that was cost-free until it's game over, this is something where you have some cost function, which is slowly growing over time. And if that cost function crosses your reward function, you stop gaining. And the problem is the usual problem is usually this cost function is something that is cheap to deal with when it's low on that curve, but it gets more expensive to fix the farther it goes up. And so, for example, an unchecked invasive species might be easy to eradicate when it first gets established, but the longer you wait, the harder it is. But the problem is it's not justifiable to deal with it. It's not causing any problems until it has become big enough to cross over that reward curve. And so we tend to always react to these things too late because the proactive cost is seen as useless because you don't see any immediate benefit for it. So should we put these in games? Should we have walls and should we have hidden growth patterns? Probably not if you want to have a good review score. But on the other hand, I'd say that as we know rules of design and know that these are bad designs, we should always be willing to break those rules of design if we have some intention for breaking it. And I think we should do this more often because games do shape us. And I don't mean in the sense that if I played too many role-playing games, I'll think I cast magic. I would say more that we were making these games to reflect the world, and we also expect the world to reflect them as we play them more. So if we expect everything to be learnable in a very straightforward dopamine loop, we're going to not be looking for ways out of that dopamine loop when we leave the video game world. So as I said, I made a lot of 7-day roguelikes, and so for this talk, I'm going to go through some of them, which relate to this idea of long-term consequences. So the first one is Fatherhood. This is the one that got me to Indiecade, because I tried to make a video game that expressed the feeling of being a father. And this has quite a few different gameplay mechanics I put in to cover that, but one key one that's relevant here is the positive and negative reinforcement. So here we have water flooding in from the right of the screen, and you are the @ sign, and you have to pick up rocks, the little pluses and whatnot, and make a dam so that the water doesn't flood your entire homestead. Your children, the 1, 2, and 3, they've been instructed ahead of time, help me pile rocks because we need to stop this flood from destroying us all. And so they do that at the beginning, at least. But being children, after a while, they'll start to play tag, and one runs over, tags the other, then it's playing tag, and your kids are no longer helping you pile rocks, and you won't be able to get the dam built fast enough. So there's two methods you can use to communicate with your children. One is to scold them, in which case they will stop playing tag and return to rock piling. The other is to praise them, in which case if they're rock piling, they'll just keep rock piling. So from the immediate viewpoint as a player, one of these actions seems to be useless. If I praise them, I've wasted a turn and nothing has changed in the game state that I can see. Whereas if I scold them, I've spent a turn, but I've seen a positive change in the game state, namely the tag playing kid is now rock piling. However, the children are attempting to maximize attention. Their goal is to get the maximum attention they can from their father, so they're always watching to see what behaviors will grant them attention. So if they see praising gives them attention, they will be more likely to switch to rock piling in the future. And if they see that scolding gives people attention, well, they'll be more likely to switch to playing tag in hopes of being yelled at and thus getting at least noticed by their father. And so we end up with a strange situation where the actual feedback the game is giving you immediately is completely opposite to the actual play you should be doing. You should be maximizing your praising and minimizing your scolding rather than the other way around. This was also sort of driven by what I'd heard from psychology, because looking into how to rear children, you're told focus entirely on positive reinforcement, but that seems to contradict our lived experience, where yelling at people seems to be effective and praising them doesn't really do anything. And I think this is sort of like underlines why. It's like, why praise them if they're already doing the good job, and why? And so I should have to yell at them when they aren't. But it's very hard to realize, no, actually you can lock in the behaviors and shape the behaviors better if you just reverse that mindset. But it's a very hard one to realize in the world. The next game is Vicious Orcs. So in this game, you are a person in this village. This village is snowed in for the winter, and the nearby cave is opened up, and there used to be orcs in there. So the plan is to wait for the spring for adventurers to clear it out. Well, not really. You've decided you're going to clear it out yourself. So the game sets up that you really don't have to do this, and it's just your greed that is motivating you. But as you go into that cave, you'll find a bunch of spell books to do things like town portals and fireballs and heal spells. And you'll also find that there's the sacred island that you can go over and meditate in, and that will give you mana. And that's kind of interesting, because if you don't meditate on the island and you try and cast a spell, it uses your hit points to cast the spell. Now, you can get these back by trading gold in at the medic, so it's quite a feasible thing to do. But it also obviously would be better just to use the mana, which you're getting for free. So after you get to the bottom of the dungeon, it collapses behind you, and then you come out in the orcs valley, and there you kill all of the orcs, and then it fades back, and you get to see that who you killed was actually the villagers, because you suffered a psychotic break going through the dungeon and just killed off your own villagers. You basically became the orc. But that doesn't happen if you didn't actually cast any spells with mana. And the game tries to make that clear in several ways. There's the pros and the trappings. There's subtle things like the fields start to freeze and the villagers start to get colds if you abuse the mana. But there's also the psychotic break in the gameplay. So the game becomes incredibly easy when you use the mana system, because you can just town portal back, refill your mana, heal yourself up, and repeat. And the hope was that players would recognize that breaking gameplay difficulty was actually a sign that they shouldn't have done that and should have thus gone for basically the hidden hard ending. Despite that, I don't think anyone has found that out independently. So thus, I went for everything as fodder. I decided to be a lot more overt with it. So in this game, you are wandering around a dungeon again, and there are these incredibly verbosely described things like Victorian evil-eyed pine sculptures, which you can pick up, and you can transmute everything into coins, just into their elemental coins, and then cast spells with those elemental coins. But the more you cast spells with elemental coins, the less you start to see the uniqueness of the world. The world starts to just devolve into that, white noise of just a wooden sword rather than a elegantly crafted wooden sword. And if you continue to cast even more spells, things are even more reduced to the point where things just become sources of wood, and a stone hammer is just a blunt stone because you don't really care about any of the details or trappings. And when you finally do kill the boss and finish the game, the quality of the ending is entirely dependent on how decayed your worldview is. If you're just down to seeing things as sources of wood, you get a very bad ending because you save the world, but you can't really enjoy it at all. Whereas if you do manage to do it without casting spells, you're going to get the best ending, and we still have all the enjoyment of the world. And so this is playing on how we actually play video games ourselves, where we tend to start seeing them as just mere numbers. And it's always sort of a disappointing point for me is in an RPG, when I'm just staring at a mini-map, traveling from place to place, and I've stopped looking at the beautifully rendered screen to the bottom left of where I'm staring. So for Sword in Hand, I ended up trying to do something very philosophical here. So I was trying to understand the concept of pacifism, which is a rather difficult thing, and not helped by the fact that I am not a pacifist myself, but a lot of incredibly intelligent people have been pacifists. So I decided to try and find out why that is a logical position to have, basically. And so in this game, you play the role of a sword, and as a sword, you possess this adventure, and each time you can go back to King Viola, and you can get one of two missions. One of the missions is a sort of peaceful mission where you try and find something good for the world, such as find any new type of light-resistant crops or some water filter. The other one's something that does something that helps the war effort more directly, such as finding napalm or finding gunpowder. And so you choose your mission, you go off on your adventure, you hopefully defeat them and get the item back, and then the world map updates with what happens in the ensuing battles. So the strength of the different armies will be controlled by whether or not you get new powerful weapons or not, and the ability of people to repopulate, etc., is based on whether or not you get the new things for peace. So obviously, if you focus on peace, you probably end up going to lose the war. But if you focus on war, you'll probably get a very painful Pyrrhic victory at the end. The actual ending, though, is always done from the viewpoint of the sword. And so it actually doesn't matter who wins the battle. It matters how long it takes the world to repopulate after the battle. So if the world, so it's got the whole simulation mechanics. So after it finishes the battle and everyone's been killed, it says how many years will it take to get back to the original population. And if that's within 50 years, there's a nice peaceful ending, and you end up being put in a display case in a museum. If it's 50 to 100 years, there's a grim dictatorship crushing bandits, which is so-so as a sword. And if it's 100 plus years to recover, well, that's gravy. It's pure anarchy. You get to go from roving band to roving band slaughtering people. Because, of course, the good ending for a sword is the one which has the most violence and use of a sword in it. But then again, the good ending for the people of the world, obviously that would be the one which is most peaceful and prosperous, right? And the good ending for Viola, the king, is anyone in which he wins, because it doesn't matter if the world's peaceful at the end if he wasn't the one that won. And then the good ending for you as a player will be the one where you got to run as many missions as possible, because if you finish the game too quickly, you don't get to see all the different worlds that you could run on. So you do definitely have that different endings, and the endings here are actually very conflated of what the correct one is. So one of my favorite reviews of this was someone saying that, they played it and they really thought they understood the message I was saying about pacifism, but they weren't sure if they agreed with it. And I really like that, because I don't know what message of pacifism I'm saying about here. The one I really took away from the reading was basically, just as we are usually willing to say it's worthwhile to die for the sake of your nation state, it's also, we should be equivalently willing to have our nation state die for the sake of humanity. But it's a pretty extreme situation. So moving back down from war to economics, we have the Smith's Hand. So this is back in that village that we saw previously with vicious orcs. But in this case, we have waited for the adventurers to show up, and you're playing the role of Smith. So as each adventurer comes in, they want to buy some equipment from you, and they want to also sell anything they find in the dungeon. And you can basically run this as a little merchant simulation. The big catch is the you have a monopoly. So they will accept any price you ask for. So you can see how much gold they have and fleece them for every last gold, or else be generous and give them stuff at massive discounts. But here, this thus seems like a case where you should just, of course, maximize exploitation, except there really are orcs this time, and they're multiplying. And so this forms that hidden growth function. And so you really have to keep pruning the orc population in order to ensure they don't overrun and kill you off, because then you basically have lost all chance. Probably there's a nice sweet spot where you can just farm the orcs as long as possible to maximize your gold, but that can be very risky if they end up taking off. But it's kind of an important message, I think, for the actual world, where even if you end up with a monopoly where you seem to think you have a closed system, which you have full control of, you still need to invest in it, because there are always externalities that will come in and disrupt your balance eventually. War of 1812 was a game that I made because, well, I always had this dream of a game, which was you were the general in a tent, and there was the map in front of you, and there's all the wooden pegs representing the armies, and messengers will come in and update where they are, and you'd ask for them to move a new location or to send messengers off. And it was a very hyper-realistic simulation of this, where you have only the local information of the game itself. The problem I had is every time I thought about how it would work, I saw no way in which to make the game actually strategic. It seemed to be the case that it would just be pretty much wandering around randomly, hoping to bump into each other. Well, then I read War and Peace, and at the end, Tolstoy has a big, long rambling rant about how top-down control is impossible, and all the armies just wander around bumping into each other. And I realized it was probably not my fault, but maybe just intrinsic to the system at hand. So I made War of 1812. So it actually simulates the over 10,000 soldiers in 10 regiments, 10 regiments each side. And when you send orders to a regiment, individual soldier will be dispatched to actually go to that regiment to give them the order for them to update where they're going to go. And likewise, updates of where things are require a soldier to come back and tell you in Regiment 0 what the current status is. So the farther away your troops get, the more out of date your information is. And so thus you can muddle around and attempt to have some strategy that works on this map. And you can also zoom in, fortunately, because this is the sort of interesting part to watch, where because you accidentally got pincered, you can watch your whole troops be massacred in exquisite detail. It thus shows sort of this illusion of control and the pointlessness of strategic control. I've always seen this as a strong metaphor for CEOs of large transnationals, where they think they have control over their company, but really I think they have way less control than they ever believe. And that pointlessness leads us to Pointless itself, to my most recently 7 Day Roguelike. In this one, you play the role of a regressor, someone who just dies and comes back to life over and over again. Now is on the same island. And this island, those, of course, roguelikes, so it's always a new island, procedurally generated, but the underlying rules are always the same. So you've already done everything as a character, so you have no interest in anything else. So as a result, there's no gameplay loops being broadcast to the player. They're not told what they need to do next or what they should actually achieve in this game. They're just given a bunch of tools and systems. Now, there could be a lot of loops here. There is Beelzebub at the depths of the dungeons you could defeat, and you can also build a boat and try and sail across the ocean to see what's on the other side. But there's nothing actually in the game driving to this. Instead, all the characters' monologue is more just the uselessness of doing anything. The only gameplay loop I really did make sure was obvious was how to break 2 pieces of wood to make a campfire, because this takes place in the winter. So that's all snow you see there. And so you can quickly get frozen and freeze to death. But then people did figure that out, so I'm happy. They could figure out how to light fires. But the next meta loop is that obviously when I start exploring, I should stop every so often, light a fire, warm up again, and then continue exploring. This I did not see people ever really figure out. They would keep just walking into the snow until they froze to death. Maybe they'd light a fire, wait 1 or 2 turns, but not actually warm up, and then walk and freeze to death. And I'd like to say that this is a flaw on their part, but I've seen this myself in the real life. We were doing winter camping in Scouts. We're all sitting around a fire, poking at it, getting cold as the fire went out. And then the Scoutmaster comes back an hour later and says, "Why did no one put more wood on the fire?" And I mean, why didn't we? Just poked it and watched it slowly go out. So I think that most games should probably remain easy to learn and easy to play. But I think making games that are hard to learn is actually an interesting design space as much as hard to master is. So we shouldn't be trying to polish all of our games to the point where they're all like straightforward and exactly match this simple mental training model that we have built inside of us, we should be willing to step outside of that and force players to actually exercise their brains and do some meta learning that isn't exactly guided for them. We definitely have an advantage for that in roguelikes because people already expect them to be hard to learn, so they're willing to actually step up to the plate. And as hobbyist developers like myself, I don't actually have to make something successful, so it's easy for me to say, put some walls in your game so people figure out how to overcome them. But if you have to make money, you probably need to avoid that to get your good review score. So thank you very much for listening to me. And I hope you enjoyed this talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was a great talk. Someone mentioned in chat, and I agree that to have designed any one of these games would be impressive, and the fact that you've been able to put out such an incredible roster of games with really interesting messages and conveyed through mechanics is very impressive. Thank you.